Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and glad to have you along with us. How have you been? What have you done since we last talked? Have you had a chance to do anything fun? Any outdoor adventures you were able to sneak in with your busy work schedule, your busy schedule with the kids and the grandkids? And you know, in many school districts across the state, kids are going back to school this week coming up. Where did the summer go? I've been telling you about this. I've been telling you for weeks that summer season is rapidly coming to an end. Don't let it slip by without you taking advantage of it. Did you listen to me? Did you? I hope you did. I hope you did. I took my own advice. I got out on Saginaw Bay, solo trip on my beloved angler quest. Now, traditionally for me, my summertime Saginaw Bay walleye fishing season comes to an end with the month of August. Usually, by the time August rolls around, I am getting ready for an Ontario bear hunt. And that coincides very well with the fact that the inner Saginaw Bay walleye fishery really dies off in August. Can you catch fish out there in August? Absolutely. Can you have great trips out there in August? Absolutely. Usually, though, you've got to go a little deeper, a little colder water, a little, away from the warmer, skinny water that I love so much. Now, I didn't go to Ontario this year for a bear hunt. Couple of reasons, including the fact that I actually have a Michigan tag this year, and I will be bear hunting in the UP in September. So that combined with some other things made me decide, you know what, I'm going to pass on the Ontario hunt this year. But I did make that trip out on Saginaw Bay last week, a solo trip on the Angler Quest. I thought, I just want to go out there by myself. I just want to relax. I want to light a cigar and see what I can find. I wanted to go out there and see if I could find fish in that skinny water that I love so much. And I said on Wednesday Night Live before going out there, I said, if there are fish in the skinny water, I will catch them. I feel very confident, very, very comfortable in that shallow water. Couldn't get anything going, which is kind of what I suspected would be the case. So I thought, well, let's go out deep. So I picked up and I started to run out deep, and I hit about 14 feet of water and started to mark a bunch of fish. So what's the saying? Don't leave fish, don't run over fish to find fish. I'm marking fish here in 14 feet of water. I should fish this 14 feet of water. So I set lines out. Couldn't get those fish to go. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep trolling out to deeper water and see what I can find. I got all the way out to 22 feet of water. Could not get a fish. Marking a few of them, marking them high and low. I thought, all right, maybe, this indeed does prove that my fishing season is probably over. I turned around and said, I'm just going to troll back into the skinny water and call it a day. Oh, I got back into about 14 feet of water. I had 3 lines out. And let me tell you what, it drove me crazy just to troll with 3 rods. That's all I am legally allowed. But again, I'm asking myself, why? What is the reason to have a limit on the number of rods a Great Lakes trolling angler can use? I think that's because it's the law. Give me a reason why that's the law. Are you worried about protecting the resource? Size limits and creel limits protect the resource. It doesn't matter how many rods you use to catch those fish. But I felt very limited by only trolling three lines, right? Because I'm used to being out there with 8, 10, 12. I've run 14 rods off the Angler Quest. I'm used to being able to put out a pretty good spread and figure out what's going on. You can find out what's going on a lot quicker with 10 rods than you can with 3. Anyway, I thought my shallow baits aren't doing anything. I've tried bouncing spoons off the bottom. That isn't working. What I'm going to do, all right, I'm going to do something I don't like to do. I'm going to put out a real long lead. Now, for me, this is real long. I had one of those PWC lights, the precise walleye cranks that the Romanex came out with. It's either Bill Norman or Bill Lewis. I can never remember which. I put that on an outside, and I put it 85 feet back, which would have been just about scraping the bottom. Finally, flag goes down, board goes back. I thought, oh, this looks like a walleye bite. It doesn't look like a catfish. It doesn't look like a pike. It doesn't look like a sheephead. I think it's a walleye. And indeed it was. I scraped up one fish that day. Turns out, talking with a lot of other friends, I wasn't alone. There wasn't, I don't know of any limit catches caught that day. I know of some charters that came in blanked. A buddy of mine got 4 or 5 fish, and that's the most I heard of anybody getting. So my point is, it's getting to be the time of year where it is indeed time for me to move on to other things. Those other things will include a little bit of deer hunting, bear hunting, turkey hunting. I don't plan to target turkeys, but I did get, I got a notification from the DNR. Avery, your application for a fall turkey tag was successful. And then I got thinking, I think everybody who applies for a fall turkey tag is successful. And then I think, well, if you didn't apply, can't you just go in and buy it over the counter? I don't know the answer to those questions, but I know that I will have a fall turkey tag in my pocket when I head out there, just in case a longbeard walks in front of me, because you know that is going to happen. Cicadas are buzzing like crazy. What does that mean? It means the end of the summer, early fall coming up. We've had this discussion. When the cicadas start to buzz, does that mean there's a correlation to when our first frost comes? I've seen some trees changing, particularly maples. Have you seen those? And it's not from drought conditions. Now, don't leaves change their color based on the length of daylight? So shouldn't that be the same year in and year out? So why, in my part of the world, am I seeing so many maples that are starting to turn already? I don't know the answer. If you do, please let me know. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and let me know what the explanation is, because I'm very curious about this. Did you see the northern lights? I didn't. I just missed them. By the time I realized there were northern lights going on, the next night I went out there looking for them and couldn't find them. They were already done. But I hear I've seen pictures and video. For a couple of nights, it was really pretty spectacular, wonderful. Also this past week, I've seen the first pictures of the prototype Angler Quest. Mr. Angler Quest Brad Dupuis is coming out with his new line of boats. If you want to see what it looks like, go to my Facebook page. Very cool, very promising. We should see that in the water very soon now. Congrats, Brad, and everybody he's working with on that project. What's coming up? Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch is slated, is scheduled, is locked in for Wednesday night, September 18th. I know. September 18th gets us into the hunting season, right? It's into the bear season. It's into the waterfowl season. It's into the small game season. I know. I get it. But I wasn't going to do it the week before September 11th. I wasn't going to have a celebration on 9/11. But we will have a celebration on 9/18. Love to have you join us. If you want to join us, you'll have to call for reservations. There is no fee. There is no reservation price. I'm not buying your dinner. You'll have to buy your own dinner. But it's pretty darn good food there at the Lumberjack. 989-343-0892 for reservations. Again, that's Wednesday, September 18th at the Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. A Wednesday Night Live. We go live at 7. Make your reservations for 5:30 or 6. Good food, good drink, good conversation, a lot of fun. 989-343-0892 for reservations. I hate giving out phone numbers, but it's 989-343-0892. If nobody answers, be patient. Stay on the line. A machine will pick up. Tell people your name, how many in your party, and a phone number where we can contact you to confirm those reservations. 989-343-0892. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Adam Lewis of Deer IQ talks about being a better deer hunter. He also talks about using trail cameras, and he tells the story of knocking on Mitch Rompola's door to ask him about that potential world record buck from 25 years ago. Then Paul Pirone from Versa Skins. In hour number 2, we're talking food plots with Rich Chrzan of Michigan-based Killer Food Plots. It is that time of year. Then Jeremiah Blaauw from the DNR on their hatchery system. An interesting program there. And our Ask Avery segment, our Ask Avery question this week. Avery, can I hear your radio show on a station in Detroit? We'll have the answer to that. And in hour number 3, Lance Valentine, he got a hold of me. He says, Mike, I want to talk about forward-facing sonar. I said, let's do it. I said, Lance, can I build this as the definitive discussion of forward-facing sonar? He said, yep. I said, all right, Lance, you've got the airtime. Let's do it. And then we'll wrap up the show with wild game chef extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, it's also available as a podcast, by the way. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and my email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. Send me an email. Let me know what's on your mind. Give me the answer to why are the maples turning early this year or whatever else. Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WZTK in Alpena, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. Michigan-based, family-owned Killer Food Plots. Now is the time to get those food plots in the ground. And why not work with a Michigan-based company? In fact, Rich Chrzan will join us in the second hour. But if you'd like to learn more about the company, their products, and their services, go to the website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Along the line of getting ready for deer season, my guest this week right now, my first guest of the show, Adam Lewis of Deer IQ. Adam has been on the show with me before. You can learn more about him on his website, deeriq.com. And just about anywhere online, do a search for Deer IQ. You'll find his podcast and much more. Adam, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Always a pleasure, man. It's getting to be that time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Hey, one of the things I really want to talk with you about this week is trail cameras, how to use them, which ones to get, how to set them up. But I've got to follow up on something you've been working on. Mitch Rompola. Now, that's and the Rompola buck. That's a story that is a quarter century old. I knew Mitch. I interviewed Mitch. I interviewed him for the TV show. I interviewed him on the radio show after he shot the big buck. Unfortunately, back then we weren't recording shows. You've done some research on this too. And Adam, I got to ask, what is the appeal? What is the interest? Why do people care? Why do you care after all these years?
Yeah, so we did a show on it, and really I think it's the mystery of it that's really intriguing to everybody. Just the unknown, right? The mystery behind it. He just kind of disappeared after that happened, and there's a lot of unanswered questions for a lot of people. So I just think naturally it kind of turns into this legendary type thing. And we did a show on it where I interviewed some people, but at the end of the day, it just, without Mitch talking, it's just a lot of people that believe in it and a lot of people that don't. And they both sides of that have a lot of reasons for it that seem legitimate. But at the end of the day, my conclusion really was that you just kind of have to accept it for what it is, that we just won't know unless other things are revealed. So, yeah, but I think it's just one of those stories that's so intriguing, and it's unanswered questions.
You took this one step further, though, and I find this very interesting. You went to his house. You knocked on his door. Now, I have called him. I have reached out to him on the phone several times, but I've never gone to his house. How did that go? What happened?
Yeah, well, I knocked on his door. It was really interesting, and just really to get an interview. I wanted to talk to him about great hunters, because on the podcast we were talking about what it takes to be a great hunter, and so many people consider him to be one of the best. So I just wanted to talk to him about that, and knocked on his door. He did not come to the door, and so I left him a note to hopefully get back with me, right? And then I followed up the next day because I was up in that area, and the note was gone. So I know I got the note. I was hoping he'd follow up, but he didn't. But I guess one thing I found out, there was this rumor that's been going around that, all his racks, or at least that rack, burned up in a fire. And if the rumor is that it was at that house, that clearly did not happen. That house has been there for a long time. There's no signs of that. So at least that rumor's maybe cleared up. But it was, just interesting that, things looked very similar. And actually, like, his truck was the Ranger truck that's in all those pictures was still parked there. It's just interesting, that time hasn't changed much in some regards. But I tried, but that didn't work out either. So it's still unsolved. Some questions linger, I guess.
Yep, and I agree with you. It's going to be a mystery until Mitch decides to talk, and I don't think at this point he's going to. So let's move our conversation along, Adam. Deer IQ. My sense is that you are all about trying to educate hunters and make deer hunters more knowledgeable. Is that accurate?
Yep, it's educational, trying to basically hunt smarter. So we try to dig into topics that maybe go a little deeper than some. We have all different levels, I guess, of conversations and podcasts and all that, but just trying to dig deeper, right? Be smarter hunters. Smarter hunters usually make better decisions, and therefore can be, better hunters and have better outcomes. So that's kind of the goal.
Adam, I mean, trail cameras, is there anything that has improved our deer hunting, made us better hunters more than trail cameras?
I'm not sure. They're definitely one thing that is a great tool. There's good and bad of them. You can definitely use them to make some really great decisions. So I look at them as a piece of the puzzle, right? To collect intel or data, to scout, right? That helps drive your hunting decisions. So you're making smart ones. You're not just guessing, right? But depending on how you use them, they can actually hurt you too. And so there's good and bad of them. You got to use them correctly, basically.
How would a trail camera hurt you?
Well, there's a lot of ways. So there's something called what I call reverse surveillance. So that's just a term to kind of describe the idea that every time we go in the woods, whether it be to put a trail camera, to check one, whatever we're doing, we are making an impact, right? And so our goal with cameras should be, and this is what I try to do very hard, is that I'm just surveilling the deer without them knowing that I'm there at all or surveilling them, right? But if we make little mistakes, it turns into this reverse surveillance game where they're now observing us, right? And this could be a wide range of things we can dig into here, but all of a sudden you're tipping your hand to the deer by how you're using them, how you're getting the SD cards or your data, and they really become a negative thing in that case when the deer know that you're in their area or that you're hunting them, right? Some of those things really could be putting it too low. And a lot of this, and this is the tough part, there's a lot of, I think, bad education on commercials and things or even different YouTube channels where they show hanging a camera that's very obvious. It's in the wide open. It's like head level to a deer. And you might get away with that in some areas in some states, but I don't think Michigan is one of those, right? Where you have more pressured deer and things, they notice those things sticking out, and it can really push deer away from your area, right? If you hang it too low, if they can see it. And another one is, just smelling that a human has been there, right? And so that's an intrusion and a mistake that people make. They can get really sloppy with that. How often you check them, right? So once you put a camera out, you really want to see what's on it, right? You want to,
that's the goal. Yeah.
You're like a kid on Christmas morning,
exactly.
Right? And so
yeah,
it can cause you to check them too much and add more pressure, right? With your scent, with your sound, with maybe deer seeing you. And if you put them in too deep, right, then you're really intruding into your hunting spots before season maybe even starts, right? So those are things to really be aware of, I guess. And also, I guess, just be aware that trail cameras are just a snapshot. They don't give a full picture of what's going on. They can give a key piece of data to help you seal the deal. And I have a ton of stories with exactly that, right? Where I've taken bucks because of a key piece of data being a trail cam picture. But there's other times where I realized that maybe I lean too much on trail camera data and they don't give a full picture, right? It's a snapshot in time. It's only pointed in a certain direction. If I don't set it up in the right direction, I won't even get the deer walking through that area. I might miss data because it takes a picture and then it shuts off for 30 seconds or a minute or however long I have it timed for, right? And then deer can walk by right after that, right? And I never get a picture of them. And so if I assume the camera picks up everything, I have limited data. I'm going off limited data and maybe something that's not true. So you kind of have to see them for what they are in that regard, but avoid some of those things that turn it into letting the deer just start observing you. And sometimes they're smarter than us. It seems they figure us out real quick. And that's one thing, if you don't use them correctly, that they can do.
We're talking with Adam Lewis of Deer IQ. Again, his website, deeriq.com. That's deeriq.com. You can find Adam all over online. He's got a great podcast, a lot of other things as well. We're talking about primarily getting ready for the upcoming deer season. Now, trail cameras are something that we use a lot for bear hunting, but it's a whole different ballgame. Primarily for bear hunting, you're putting up a camera over a bait, and the camera doesn't seem to spook the bears. Now, they're curious. I've had more than one camera. I've had more than one bear come into a camera, and you'll get a picture of the inside of their mouth or their snout. But they do give you a really good way to judge the bears that are coming in. Now, like Adam said, you're not going to see everything that comes in. So you can't rely too much on trail cameras. In fact, you can't rely too much on technology in general, right? But I've been getting a lot of bear pictures lately from my friend Ross Elliott, who's guiding up in Ontario. And also Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer. I'll be hunting with Johnny here coming up in a few weeks. So it's really nice to be able to see the different animals that are coming in, to judge them, to get an idea before the hunt. And it's the same thing with trail cameras and whitetail hunts. If you know, say you're a trophy hunter, and I'm not, but say there is a particular buck in the area, and he's a big buck, and you would like to target that buck, the trail camera will let you know that he's there. And so you might want to pass on it. You might want to pass on a smaller buck holding out for the big guy. Same thing with a bear. If you know there's a monster bear at a bait, you might just hold off on the medium-sized guy and wait for the big guy. I don't know. We'll see if that happens or not. Lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. You know, you can hear the show in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. Newberry, where I will be bear hunting in September with Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Matt Smith, Outdoor Realtor. Matt, a longtime friend of mine. He's an expert at finding recreational properties and vacation homes, and he can help your family turn a dream into a reality. Learn more online at mattsmithoutdoors.com. I'm sorry, that's Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, if you're looking for a new home as your primary residence, Matt can help you out there as well. That's Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. Right now, I'm talking with Adam Lewis about getting ready for the deer season. Adam is a very knowledgeable guy. I've had him on the show here before. You can learn more about him online on his website, deeriq.com. He also has a podcast. He's very much involved in social media. And Adam, as we talked about before, your goal, your quest is to make deer hunters more educated. And we're talking about trail cameras. To me, if you put a cellular camera out there, a wireless camera, doesn't that negate the concerns you were talking about in the first part of our conversation?
Yeah, somewhat. So the idea of checking them too often then, right? So that helps that out big time. Still setting them up, is important in different things. So if you can afford a bunch of cell cameras, go for it. I can afford, a handful of them, right? And so yeah, cell cameras are great for spots deep where you can't check them like the edge of a field. I'd keep regular ones, somewhere I can check real easily, right? But deeper areas, places I don't want to intrude, cell cameras work great. A lot of people, you see these commercials, you see YouTube videos where they're hanging them waist high to a person, which is about head high to a deer. And that just really gives them an opportunity to see it and smell it. And my goal when I go out there is to not allow them to even know that anything has changed, that there could be a human intruding, right? And so I try to get them head high so they're not easily smelling it. They're not easily seeing it. It's not right in their line of sight. That's one thing to think about. Another thing, I also use hip boots a lot, and even rubber gloves just to keep scent down. And it's not just on the camera, it's also where you're walking around, where you place it. And, I hunt a lot of public land, and so that can be really high pressure. And so I really watch that a lot, right? And also something to think about is, I guess, the angle to the object you're trying to capture, right? So if I set a camera that's right on the trail and a deer's coming right at it and looking at it because it's right next to the trail, there's a good chance they're going to see that and potentially change their route because of that. Maybe they can then smell it too. And that's just something that's odd to them. And so I try to avoid that. I've found kind of a 45-degree angle to kind of be a sweet spot. So it's off far enough they won't see it. It's in the periphery. It's up a ways. It's not obviously sticking out somewhere. And then it gives you kind of the best of both worlds where they're walking kind of at it. So it gives the camera longer to notice them.
We can't bait deer in the Lower Peninsula, so we don't have that option. I mean, so where do you put a trail camera? Where are you putting your trail cameras, Adam?
Well, I hunt a lot of public land. And so when I do that, I'm trying to find several things that bring deer to a location or by a location. So maybe it's several trails that kind of converge at one point. Maybe it's a pinch point, where a field meets some thick cover or something. I'm trying to get more than one line of travel to just maximize the chance that a deer will walk by it. Field edges obviously will pick them up. It early in season, for me, it's more I'm just trying to get an inventory of what's around. And so field edges work pretty good for that, even though I probably won't hunt there, right? But the big thing is trying to find multiple reasons why a deer would walk by or through a certain area. And that's just going to maximize your chance of seeing what's there. You can also use mock scrapes, right? We can't put out bait or salt licks, but mock scrapes can get them in front of it, or at least get them to stop. And so you can get a decent picture. Definitely on private land, you can do that really well. And you're not worried about other people finding your setup, right? But those are a couple, I guess, key things to mention. And I guess consider too, the cell cameras really help this with the intrusion part, but I guess just think about, this is how I do it, think about every bit of intel you get has a cost to it, and you kind of have to weigh that cost versus what you're going to get in return, right? And so the cell cameras are great because you can literally just stay out of a spot and just wait until the time is perfect to go in and shoot a deer, right? Which for me, that criteria would be is a deer I want to shoot showing up in daylight. And then I'm going to go in, right? So the cell cameras are great for that, a great tool for that. And you can have multiple properties, multiple areas on public, and just be monitoring it until the time's right. And so you can really maximize your hunts instead of just going in and just sitting somewhere hoping, right?
Adam Lewis, listen, great advice on getting ready for the season using cell cameras. I would encourage people to check you out online. DeerIQ.com is the website, DeerIQ.com. He's all over social media. Adam Lewis, DeerIQ.com, and elsewhere. We'll take a break. Lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux, WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination. I told you my skinny water was kind of slowing down, but if you go out to Linwood Beach and head northeast, you'll be in the deep water where the fish are right now. They've got great launch facilities, complete ship store, beautiful campground, great people. I'm telling you, Linwood Beach is your source for Saginaw Bay walleye fishing and more. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you are online, if you would go to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, I would appreciate it. Then jump on over to Versaskins.com, and then as an added bonus, go to Amazon and do a search for Versaskins brand, and you will find Versaskin, Michigan-based Versaskins on Amazon now. Paul Pirone is the guy behind Versaskins, and he's with us to talk about that and more. Paul, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing great, but man, there are some exciting things going on in your world right now, my friend.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. We just launched on Amazon, as you announced, and we're just hoping to get the word out more and have a bigger platform to sell on. So we've gone live on Amazon, and we actually have some new customers, which is awesome. Check us out on Amazon, and we can fulfill your needs through that platform now.
And if you want to see Versaskins in person and meet and talk with Paul, you guys are going to be back in Imlay City for the Woods and Water Outdoor Weekend.
That's correct. This is our 7th year at Woods and Water, same location, outside setup. We are in booth 317, and as always, we will have our Woods and Waters display set up, and we will have discounts for all of our customers.
And just a reminder, Paul, for folks who aren't aware, Versaskins, I talk about the change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of expensive hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? I love the fact that you make a wide variety of sizes, including for big hunters and now for saddle hunters too.
That's correct, Mike. We found a niche for the big and tall hunters, so we are doing 4, 5, and 6X, which is unheard of. Most companies stop at 4X. but we can't keep 5 and 6Xs in stock. As soon as we get them in, they are gone, which is really good because we want to make sure we take care of all the hunters, all sizes. And then we are still the only and the original saddle hunting jacket supplier. We make a jacket that's custom for saddle hunters. And again, if you go onto our website, we have a saddle hunting section that talks about the jacket and the new trend in saddle hunting and how it's becoming very, very popular.
Well, you've got both ends of the market covered. You got for the young guys who are athletic, the saddle hunters, and for bigger hunters who need to help the 4, 5, 6X. You got all ends of the spectrum there, Paul.
Yeah, we are trying to be a one-stop shop, especially with our patented application of skins. Right, if you buy our base jacket, then we want you to come back, and obviously, if you want to buy a Blaze or an 8-piece Snow or a Max 5 for duck hunters. Or if you become a tree hunter, you can get your jacket modified. We want to be a one-stop shop, again, saving you money, saving you space in your closet, and being able to accommodate all hunters, all sizes, all ages.
So, Paul, would you direct new customers to your website, versaskins.com, or would you send them to Amazon?
Yes.
Both. Yes. Okay.
Amazon is limited to what we can show, but our website also has instructional videos. So we've got 2 instructional videos and our commercial that is on the website. So you can watch these videos. They'll tell you how to put the product together. The website also talks a little bit about my wife and I and how we came up with the idea and where we've been with the product. And then it also, has our sponsors like you, Mike, and listed on the website as well, and our long-standing relationship.
Well, and you'll be at the Woods and Water show. I don't remember the exact dates, but it's always the first full weekend after Labor Day. That's a great show, isn't it, Paul?
It is. It's September 6th through the 8th at the Eastern Michigan Fairgrounds in Imlay City. Friday, the show starts at 3, goes to 9. And then Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 7 and 9 to 5. And again, we're at booth 317. And stop by and see us. And we're looking forward to meeting some more Michigan folks and hopefully putting them in VersaSkins.
Paul, congrats on the continued success. Congrats on the Amazon connection now, and nothing but good things in the future for Michigan-based family-owned VersaSkins. Congrats. Good job.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. Paul
Pirone of VersaSkins, the website versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com, or the new VersaSkins page on Amazon. When you go to Amazon, do a search for VersaSkins brand, and it'll pull it right up. I wear VersaSkins when I'm hunting, and it is getting to be that season coming up, isn't it? We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, let's talk about food plots with Rich Chrzan of Killer Food Plots, Jeremiah Blaauw from the DNR on their hatchery system, and this week's Ask Avery question: can you hear the radio show in Metro Detroit? All that coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on 33 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And as always, so glad to have you along with us. And as always, I think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM station. Because if for no other, well, to support your local radio station, of course, but also the radio stations get the content of the show before I upload the podcast version of the show. Yes, there is a podcast version. You hear so much about podcasting these days. I think podcasting is great, but I think outdoor radio is better. If you can't listen to the show on your local radio station, if they don't carry all 3 hours of the program, or if you live in some part of our state, and we'll talk more about this at the end of the hour, not covered by the broadcast signal, it is nice to know there's a podcast version of the show available. And you can hear the podcast anywhere. You can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. All of the podcast platforms, regardless of what it is, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Odyssey. It's even on YouTube. I do podcasts specifically for a few of my advertising partners, though, too. Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, and Primal Outdoors. So keep an ear out for those, an eye out for those. Regardless, though, of whether you are listening to the podcast or the broadcast version, when you're listening, how you're listening, thank you. I couldn't do it without you. 44 years in broadcasting, still at it, still out there, and I'm here because of your support. So I thank you very, very much. So what is going on in your world right now? A lot of options right now, isn't there? Maybe you are chasing salmon on Lake Michigan. Maybe you are, well, maybe you're up in Canada bear hunting right now. Maybe you're getting ready for bear season here in Michigan. Quite likely, though, you are getting ready for the fall deer season. What does that involve? Well, getting your bow around, getting your bow out, shooting your bow, getting your gear around. If you are fortunate to have access to private property, I would suggest that getting ready for deer season these days involves putting in a food plot, or many food plots. When I think about food plots, I think of Michigan-based killer food plots. Rich Chrzan is the guy behind the company these days, and he is my go-to source for all things food plotting. Rich, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I bet you are getting busy.
Well, I've been busy, to be honest with you. And it's actually, August starts winding down a little bit, especially in the upper part of Michigan and this mid part. Really by the end of August, you should have your main food plots in. You can still do oats in September. But yeah, yesterday was a difficult one. I broke a lot of stuff yesterday, so I get a break today so I can work on it. And it's kind of how it goes. So,
what do you mean you broke stuff? I mean, like hitting stumps, hitting rocks with stuff, or what?
Well, actually, yesterday it was like a old alternator off a tractor I found, some fence posts, implement pieces. It was, I felt like I was tilling up a junkyard. It was pretty crazy for a while. So the tines on the tiller took a real beating. Luckily, I got 2 of those, but the other one's going to get pulled in and have to start repairing that. But it's part of the game.
So I was thinking that, Labor Day was kind of the time to put in fall food plots. You're telling me Labor Day is the time to be wrapping up those fall food plots.
Yeah, really, with the way the weather is, you can never tell what Mother Nature's going to do at the end of the season. So I like to have all my brassicas in, usually no later than the 20th of August. You can go out to September, like the radishes and those have a maturity growth date of like 22 to 60 days. So you can plant those as long as the weather's nice. You can plant those and still get good growth and a lot of tonnage. Come September, probably oats. Our crop duster is a good one. Our lethal winter oats are really good. Oats are super underappreciated. And, I think it's because one seed will grow one stem, right? And it's not like a brassica where you get these 12-inch leaves and you think, oh my gosh, there's tons of food out there. So I think people get a little discouraged by looking at oats just coming up sporadically, but deer love oats. It's a great protein. I mean, there's 15 to 30% protein in oats, and they grow in low temperatures, which makes it great for the fall. I mean, they'll germinate in 40-degree soil temps. So.
Well, you talk about the weather being a wild card. That's always a wild card for you. There's nothing we can do about that. We just got to work with it. But there are some things that are under our control. And I'm going to go back to the basics, which you tell me every time we talk. What is the first thing to do, Rich?
First thing to do is a soil sample, Mike. That is where you start. That is your foundation. As I said many, many times, you can waste a lot of money, or you can not have enough money into your food plots. So yeah, for $20, $22, do that soil sample, know exactly what you need to amend that soil. Like our soil samples through Killer Food Plots, it actually, you can put in what seed blend you're looking at, up to all 11 seed blends. It doesn't cost any extra. You're just getting a whole bunch more of an email. But, it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to amend that soil for our chicory, our resurrection clover, all 11 of them. So it's really the only place to start.
So what that soil sample does is tell you where your ground is and what you need to do to get it to where you want it to be.
Correct. Yep. I mean, if you got a lot of ferns in your area, it instantly means lime. I mean, ferns, they love that 5.2 to 5.6 pH, which neutral pH is 7. So you want to be, to grow like carnage brassicas, you want to be between 6 and 7. It's really ideal. So if you're that low, you may have to add a bunch of lime to it for that season, or a lot of potash, whatever it's requiring. So you can go and not do a soil sample, but a lot of times, you get what you put into it, and not doing a soil sample is cutting a corner. So I hate cutting corners. It just doesn't get you what you want.
So our lease property is covered with ferns. What is that telling me?
It's telling me that your pH level is right around 5.2 to 5.5, 5.6.
So is that acidic, or is that the other way?
It is.
Real
Nope,
acidic.
that's
Okay.
acidic.
Okay.
Yep. Ferns love that acidic soil. The nice thing about ferns is once you terminate a fern, it's done growing for that season. It won't sprout another leaf on it. So if you are doing a food plot in a fern covered area, and those are really resistant to Roundup. So if you go in and you do a food plot in there, you mend the soil, and you do get some ferns growing back, you can just lock those heads off with a hand whip or anything.
Oh, really?
And it won't cover the ground after that. It's done for the season. I'm not saying it won't come back the next season, right? Because it's still in the ground.
Yeah.
But it takes the ground cover away, so what you put in there to grow will get the sun that it needs. So
all right. So a soil sample, number one. Let's talk about then where you put in a food plot. I mean, if you've got a natural opening that Mother Nature gave you in the woods, or maybe an obvious spot, but where else, Rich?
Cut corners of fields. If you got the opportunity to talk to the farmer that's either doing your property or a lease, take a corner. Them little hideaway corners in a field. Farmers are always trying to get every square inch they can, so they'll take them little cutouts in the corner of a field that might only be a half acre. Those are perfect kill spots. The deer can get in there. They can move in freely. They feel comfortable. A lot of times those will be in kind of a lower spot, hidden back, or trails, right? A lot of people I hear, I don't have that much property, but they have trails because they use what property they have. Plant oats in them trails. Use what you have. Drag them with a landscape rake, a harrow drag, turn the dirt up, get the leaves off there, kill off what vegetation you can, and throw some oats down and pack them into the ground the best you can. Again, oats are great. They grow late in the season, and deer love them. And the nice thing about using your trails is those deer are probably already using those trails because they're animals of convenience. They don't want to be jumping over logs if they don't have to. So it keeps them on your property longer because they will sit there and graze along that trail. It's a couple 100 yards long instead of just walking down it, trying to get to point A. They will browse, maybe make some licking branches over them. That way you can keep them there on your property longer. That's the whole goal. If they're not on the neighbor's properties, they're not shooting them. So
I love the idea of using your trails as food plots. I want to go back though to using the corner of a farmer's field, a food plot next to an ag field. I mean, you've already got a field of corn there. Why do you need a food plot too?
Well, because they'll eat the corn, right, and they'll use the corn for shelter. But give them something they don't have. Put something in that corner. Come late season, right, the corn's going to be gone, except for what gets spilled on the ground. So put in something like the carnage brassicas, that's not in that area that now come October, November, they're mature. The leaves are huge. There's big bulbs in the ground. And that might be the only food source they have now.
Gotcha. Give them something different. We're talking to Rich Chrzan of Killer Food Plots. The website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. We've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. But when we come back, there's a lot more to talk to Rich about. Look, if you're going to be putting in food plots, why not deal with a Michigan-based, family-owned food plot company? And that would be Killer Food Plots, killerfoodplots.com. More coming up. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in the UP in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Premier Maritime Training. If you've ever wanted to get your captain's license, I think this is your best bet. Captain John Littlefield taught my captain's class, and if he can help me become a licensed charter captain, believe me, he can help you get licensed as well. Check out the website pmtcaptains.com for more info. That's pmtcaptains.com. John has classes across the state, and I'm sure you can find one that will fit your schedule. That's pmtcaptains.com. Talking now with Rich Chrzan of Killer Food Plots. Rich, you will be joining us, too. As a side note, you will be joining us for our Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant on September 18th. It will be great to see you guys there.
Yes, that's always a good time, Mike. I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah,
Mike and I are looking forward to that.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And the food at the Lumberjack is outstanding, too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I can't complain about that at all. I never have been able to.
That's Wednesday night live, September 18th at the Lumberjack, 989-343-0892 for reservations. If you want to learn more about Killer Food Plots, the website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Rich, you were talking about, before the break here, about killing off the vegetation. Now, I've asked you this before, but forgive me. If you go in and spray the vegetation to kill it off, and then you go back and plant seed, doesn't what you've sprayed on there to kill the original vegetation negatively affect the seed you've planted?
It does not. So glyphosate is, that's what's in your Roundups and everything else you can buy at TSC or whatnot. It is a post-emergent, so it has to come in contact with the vegetation of the plant in order to kill it. You can literally apply seed and glyphosate the same day. I've done it before where I've gone in and I've sprayed off and I've given it a few hours to dry, and then I've gone in and I've seed drilled right through it. It won't affect the seed because the seed doesn't have any vegetation on it. So, and it doesn't leave residuals in the soil. A pre-emergent will, if you were to use like an IMOX is real popular for doing clovers and chicories because it kills almost everything but clover, chicory, and alfalfa. But it leaves a residual in the soil. So you may not be able to plant brassicas for up to 9 months. So when you start looking into herbicides like that, you really got to do some reading and research on the label. I know they don't print them very good. You're sitting there getting a headache trying to read it even with reading glasses on, but it's real important. I have some people that want to plant in farm fields. They took them back from the farmer from the previous year. I suggest you talk to that farmer and see what they put in there for a pre-emergent, because you might be wasting your time. A soil sample is not going to show you that. So it'll show you what you need to grow it. But if there's a pre-emergent in that soil that's hanging out, not any fertilizer is going to correct that for that. So,
Rich, I think you said you guys are up to 11 different seed blends now. Why are they both annuals and perennials in that lineup?
Yes, they are. A lot of our annuals, which is, you got to plant every year, we put a crimson clover in there. And that is an annual, but it seeds itself out almost better than any weed I know of. So when you plant it in the fall, a lot of those are planted in the fall. Come spring, you will have a nice bed of clover for the deer to eat on in that springtime. And it'll keep doing that for a couple of years. But because it's an annual, and if you want to work it every year, you don't feel so bad going in and killing it off in the fall and putting brassicas back down or whatever. Meanwhile, that clover is feeding your soil nitrogen, because that's what it naturally does, is pulls it out of the air, puts it into the soil. So it's kind of a win-win for fall and spring.
Why wouldn't somebody just go in and in every case put in a perennial? It's going to be cheaper and it's going to be easier. What is the role of an annual? Why not just put everything into something that's going to come back year after year?
Because you get a lot of tonnage out of your annuals. You put brassicas down, and like I say, they mature in about 35, 40 days, and there's just a ton of available food right there immediately. And it's high in carbohydrates and protein, and it gives the deer something else, right? It goes back to the attractant part plus the health of the deer. That's why you would do it. Let the clovers, I plant clovers all the time. I have clover stands behind my house, and the deer hit them 365 days a year. The does, they love the clover in the fall during rut. So, that's perfect, right? Where all the ladies are, where's the guys going to go? They're going to want to track them down. So that's a big deal. But the annuals play a big part in how much food and all the protein and the carbohydrates you can give the deer later in that season to get them through the winter months.
Has there been any research done, or is there any way of knowing, I guess? You bring your soil to where you want it to be so you get the maximum production out of your seeds. But does it also affect, I wonder, the taste of that crop?
Oh, absolutely. If your soil is not amended right and you're low on potassium or calcium, that affects the flavor, the tenderness of the plant, right? If your soil's not where it needs to be, that plant might grow up, but it might be real sticky tasting. It's real coarse. It's not going to be succulent. It's not going to be soft, and won't hold the water content that it should. Deer take a lot of their water content in through the vegetation they eat, not necessarily drinking it. So if your soil, you can get something to grow, but if the plant is not getting the nutrients it needs to do what it needs to be succulent, hold that water, and be attractive to the deer will walk by it. They'll go find something else. So it's really important to have that.
Speaking of holding water, I am fascinated by the one product you have, and I got a mental block. I can't think of the name of it, but it's designed for what Nick used to call this dirty soil, to hold sand, to hold moisture in sand.
Yes, Retain. What an awesome product. I'm starting to call it our synthetic organic matter, right? Because that's kind of what organic matter does in the soil. It's vegetation that's decaying in the soil. So what that does is it holds moisture, it breaks down and creates nutrients. Well, this is a pellet that starts out super small, size of kosher salt. When it rains, you work it into the dirt just like you would your fertilizer. You get it to the roots of the plant. And then when it rains, this little pellet swells up to almost the size of a jumbo marble, and it retains all the water and nutrients it possibly can. And then when it quits raining and dries out, it leaches that back out slowly to the plants, returns to that size of the kosher salt, which now has broke up compaction in your soil, allowing oxygen to the root base. It's a win-win. It rains again. It does the same exact thing. It cycles like that in your soil for up to 3 years. It's a fantastic product.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's no downside to this at all.
No, there really isn't. And there's applications, right? We usually do 25 pounds per acre. But if your soil's really sandy, you do up to 50 pounds an acre. It's potassium based. So when the 3-year life cycle's up, it's just potassium back in the soil. It doesn't leave a negative carbon footprint, which is pretty awesome. So
I'm also interested in what you guys have done for years in screening cover or like the real tall plants that you guys put out there that they provide screen, and you can also kind of direct the deer where you want them to go, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our border patrol is great for that. It's got winter peas, it's got soybeans in it, and it's got sorghum for the foundation and the structure. It's actually got extended stand sorghum. We had a problem a few years ago, heavy rain and snow in Michigan, which it happens. It was knocking it down. So we went with a heavier duty sorghum. It's almost like bamboo, and it holds up very well to the winds and the rain and the snow. And I actually border every one of my food plots with it. So that way I can have family, like doe families, they can be cohabitating in different food plots only 30, 40 yards apart. And if they don't see each other, they don't care. knock that screen down, they see each other, and now somebody's getting kicked out of the area. The dominant doe is going to go move the other one.
Well, that's interesting because obviously that matriarchal doe, she knows there are deer on the other side of that screen, but if she can't see them, she can tolerate them?
Yeah, they don't present a threat. It's just like I use the screening for entrance and exits of gun blinds. So I literally walked on one side of my border patrol in the morning and had deer on the other side of the border patrol at 20, 30 yards. And they may bound to the other side of the food plot, but they never leave it because they may smell me, they may hear me, but they can't make eye contact. They can't, pick out what's going on. I mean, how many times have you been walking out your blind and had that big doe spot you, right? And you can stand there and you can have that doe stare at you for 25 minutes, right? But if you move, if you blink, she's gone.
Yeah.
But if you don't, she will stand there, and sometimes she'll just start stomping her foot and doing the old snort, but she'll turn around and walk away and not really run in fear, right? It's because she can't identify you at that point because you've stopped.
I hate those old does.
Oh, they taste good.
Yeah. Hey, before we let you go, too, aren't you doing some food plot seminars at Woods and Waters this year?
Yes. Yep. So they've asked me to do, I think, one Friday, one Saturday, one Sunday. There might be two on Sunday. I'm not sure. So yeah, we're going to be doing some seminars there. That is the weekend of the 9th.
6, 7, and 8. September 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. Yep. And that's in Emily. We'll be
City,
there.
yeah.
We're set up in booth 434, 435. We got two booths because I always take too much stuff with me. So.
Well, it sounds like things are going well at Killer Food Plots.
They are. This is probably, no, not probably. This is the busiest year I've had. Being just local in Michigan, I haven't had to leave the state, so that's super cool because, I like our local. I mean, the entire state of Michigan is local for me. I'll go to the UP anywhere in Michigan. I went to Vanderbilt this year. That's really cool area up there. Really hilly. Wow, it's like almost mountainous in that area, but. Yeah, it's been a super year. So my dad's been a great help. I mean, that guy's 70 plus years old, and I think one day I had him moving 200 bags of fertilizer by hand, right? And he just won't quit. So,
hey, give the guy a break. Let him use a bucket on a tractor or something to move that stuff.
Yeah, but the problem is it was in an area we could only get a truck to, and it was ways away from our landing point. So we didn't have anything to pick a skid, so we had to throw all of it off a skid in a pickup truck, haul it up this huge hill out back to a food plot, and then load it into the spreader by hand. So, bless him, because I told him, why don't you go sit in the truck for a while? And he's like, we're getting this done. So, I mean, it's great to see him out there doing it.
That's
He's
wonderful.
having a good time.
Well, listen, congrats on all the success. I know it comes with a lot of hard work. I will send people to the website, killerfoodplots.com, killerfoodplots.com. You will be doing seminars at the Woods and Waters Show, and we'll see you at Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack Restaurant. Rich Chrzan of Killer Food Plots, killerfoodplots.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I want to talk with Jeremiah Blaauw from the DNR about their hatchery system, and then we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery question right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY. That's 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge. Just go to Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. Speaking of the UP, this segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the company that brings this sound. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife coming out of my pocket and the locking back. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. Check out their showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River. If you can't make it up there, go to the website, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. Either way, use the promo code AVERY10 and get 10% off on your Rapid River knife. That's RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. I want to turn our attention now to Jeremiah Blaauw. He's with the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. And Jeremiah, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
You are with you're a biologist involved in the hatchery system, right?
Correct. Yep. My official title is the Health, Stocking, and Marking Biologist, and I'm located out of Marquette State Fish Hatchery.
So what are you guys producing there? What fish?
So up in Marquette specifically, we raise brook trout, lake trout, and then we have one hybrid, the splake, and then we have brood stock for Arctic grayling also.
And then downstate, there are hatcheries that involve other species of fish too, then?
Correct. Yeah. Marquette's 1 out of 6 hatcheries located across the state. We have 2 in the UP, Thompson, and then, of course, we talked about Marquette. And we have Odin, Harrietta, Platte River, and Wolf Lake down below, and they're all a bit species-specific on the fish that they rear.
What would our fishery be like in Michigan without this hatchery system?
Well, I think it's without the hatchery system, it definitely gives us opportunities for our anglers to catch these diverse fish populations. So not only the implications of us catching fish and anglers catching fish, but it's a big economic boost for local economies. It's like $4.2 billion into the state's economy, and then also supports the Great Lakes fishery, which is estimated at about $7 billion.
So where do the eggs come from? I'm familiar with the egg stripping of walleye in the rivers and putting them in the rearing ponds in the past. But do you get your eggs your source eggs all from Michigan?
Predominantly, yes. Yeah. So all of our cold water species, we rely on 3 permanent egg take stations. So those are on feral populations. So those would be our Pacific salmon, and then also our steelhead. So those would happen at like the Little Manistee River Weir, and then also the Platte River Weir. And then our Atlantic salmon, we actually get from the St. Mary's River with a partnership through Lake Superior State University.
Atlantics, man, a lot of people are so excited about that. That fish kind of fills a niche that a lot of people have high hopes for.
It does. They're a great fish to catch, and through our stocking efforts with that partnership with the fish that they release and the fish that we release, it's created a world-class fishery in Lake Huron that a lot of people are excited about.
And what about the grayling? How is that coming?
Grayling are good. So we've gone up. We've done our trips up to Alaska. We have 3 brood years here at Marquette State Fish Hatchery. They're still a little young. We've been kind of monitoring their egg production. I think we're about a year out, but this year the eggs looked good, and we're doing our due diligence to track those numbers for future egg takes.
Wasn't there a limited release of grayling somewhere, though, a couple of months ago?
Yeah, what happens is we normally take surplus brood stock, so we keep extra brood stock just in case we have any problems on site at the hatchery. And we were able to stock some of those fish out Pine Lake, down below the bridge, down by Manistee, and then there were 2 lakes in the UP that we stocked them into.
Now, you mentioned problems. You had an outbreak at one of the hatcheries here, a disease outbreak, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, at Harrietta State Fish Hatchery, we had an outbreak of bacterial gill disease, kidney disease, this year. Yeah, that we had to sacrifice those lots of fish there. But the good news was Platte River hit their target numbers, and then also Lake Superior State hit their numbers for the Atlantic fishery too.
So you guys harvest eggs, you bring them to the hatchery. What's the process, Jeremiah?
So depending, yeah. So a lot of our fish can stay 1 month to a year and a half at the hatchery. So it's basically varies significantly on the species. So if we're talking about cold water, we would do our egg takes, whether that's in the fall and the spring. We would bring them in, disinfect the eggs, and then we would put them up in what we call heat trays. Normally they would hatch about a month and a half, 2 months, depending on the water temperature. And once those fry are hatched, the sac gets developed and utilized, then we put them out and we call them tanking. And then we raise them until release.
Real quick, is it safe to say you guys are more efficient than Mother Nature, more effective than Mother Nature?
We try to be, yeah. I think we give them the best boom for the buck when we get them out the door for size, for sure.
Jeremiah Blaauw, appreciate your time and the insight into the state's hatchery system, michigan.gov/DNR. Have a great day. Appreciate your time, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
Absolutely. Without our hatchery system, our fishery in Michigan would look different than it does. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Mother Nature does a great job. And I'm looking at my beloved Saginaw Bay walleye. I mean, Mother Nature is taking care of that population, but it was a pseudo hatchery system, i.e. rearing ponds, that got that fishery kicked off. So hats off to the conservation groups and the folks in the hatcheries who provide those fish for us. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this second hour with this week's Ask Avery question, and it's a question about the radio show and the reach of the radio show. And then coming up in hour number 3, Lance Valentine with what he's calling the definitive discussion of forward-facing sonar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us, let's go to Escanaba, the Riviera of the North. WCHT 600 AM 93.5 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. You know this by now, but the way this segment works, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can ask me a question that you would like me to answer directly, or maybe I have access to people that you can't reach as easy, maybe MUCC or DNR or whatever. Well, I'd be happy to do that too. The best way to get those questions to me is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Please don't send them to me in a social media message. I get a lot of messages that way, and you know what? I lose track of them, and they're coming at me from all different directions. If you send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, it comes in one centralized mailbox, and I will see it. And that's what Dan Fay did. He said, "Hi, Mike. I love your radio show. I listened to it when we were up north in Clare County." He said, "I wish you had a radio network to carry your outdoor magazine in southeast Michigan. I live in Wyandotte. What's the chance that you could get your show on WJR, 1270 AM, or 97.1 The Ticket, etc., something like that?" Well, here's a little inside baseball for you, okay? At one time, the show was on a Detroit area affiliate, and at one time it was on in Ann Arbor as well. But here is the brutal truth. In order to be on in southeast Michigan, the stations down there want me to pay for airtime. And I'm not going to do it. And this is a lesson I learned from outdoor television. The reason I got out of outdoor television was Sportsman's Channel and whoever I was on at the time wanted to charge exorbitant rates for airtime, and it just created a business model that didn't make sense. And so I said at the time, when I make the transition from TV and radio fully into radio, that business model is not going to include paying for airtime. And it doesn't. All of my other affiliates across the state are willing to work with me in trading out time. They take half the commercials, I take half the commercials. But in Detroit, Metro Detroit, Southeast Michigan, they consider that airtime to be so valuable that they are not willing to barter. They are not willing to trade. I am not willing to pay for airtime. So we're at a standoff. You know what could put this over the top? If people in that part of the state were to call these stations or email these stations, the program director, and say, "Hey, there's this guy up north, or there's this guy out, up in the central part of the state. He's got a radio show that we really like, and we think it would be interesting to people here in this part of the state." All it would take would be just a few emails, and I think we could move that. I don't want to say move the needle. We could get over the hump and make it happen again. But to be honest with you, I'm not that concerned. Would I love to be on in Detroit? Absolutely, because it's the only market in the state where I'm not on. Would I love to be on there? Sure. But the good news is that even people in Metro Detroit can still listen to the show, and they do via the podcast. That's why I love having the podcast as a backup. Now, most people who are doing outdoor programming today are using a podcast as their primary method of getting the message out. For me, it's not. For me, the primary method is the radio show and social media. And the podcast is a backup, but it sure is nice to know that that backup is out there. Speaking of social media, and I've talked about this before, it has been a wonderful tool for a guy like me who's a lifelong broadcaster, 44 years in broadcasting now this summer. Social media didn't exist when I got started, but it's here now, and it's obviously ubiquitous. It's so strong, and it's so easy for me to pick up my phone that I now have in my hand that you can't see. I pick up my phone, I can make a couple of taps and go live to an audience. That was never available years ago. Yeah, we could go live at the TV station, but it took me, a photographer, a videographer, a live truck, people back at the station, back at the studio, a director, technical director, an audio person, somebody to record the thing, the live feed. I mean, it's so easy these days. But anyway, Dan, I appreciate you asking that question. Thank you for your nice comments about saying you enjoy the show. I appreciate that. And listen, if you have a question for the Ask Avery segment, whether it's, something about the specifics of the show like this one, or something you want me to pass along to MUCC or DNR, I can't get answers to everything, but I probably have more access to those folks and places maybe than you do as a listener, and I'm happy to try to help out. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And as always, a big thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making the Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, our third and final hour this week with Sir Lancelot of Teachin Fishin, with what he has backed himself into a corner as describing as the definitive conversation about forward-facing sonar. That and Chef Dave Minar coming up in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. So, how are you? What are you doing? Are you taking advantage here of this end of summer? I mean, come on, in a lot of districts across the state, the kids go back to school this week. But I've been telling you this. I've been talking about this for a while now, saying make sure you take advantage of the outdoor opportunities, of the time that is out there, because the seasons they just fly by. And right now, a lot of people are getting ready for the fall hunting season. I am as well. I've got a new scope coming from my Brenton 350 Legend, and then I'm gonna put that scope on there, and I'm gonna take my new suppressor out. I'm gonna sight that thing in for my bear hunt coming up here in just a few weeks. I did make what I'm considering one last trip on Saginaw Bay aboard the Angler Quest, a solo trip last week, just to kind of confirm what I had a feeling was going on out there, and it's that my skinny water, my shallow water that I love so much, is probably pretty much done for a while now. as fall rolls in here and the water temps drop and the fish come back in, there will be some great fishing to be had, but I will be more than likely moving on to other things at that point. At least that's my perception. When I think about fishing, though, and I think about Saginaw Bay and walleye and electronics, and that's going to be the topic of our discussion today, I think of my good friend Lance Valentine, Sir Lancelot of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com. And he reached out to me a few days ago, and he said, I want to talk about forward-facing sonar on the show when you have some time available. I said, Lance, if we can characterize this as the definitive conversation on forward-facing walleye, or forward-facing sonar, let's do it. He says, yeah, we can call it that. So we are. And Lance is with us. Lance, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing good. Mike, how are you today?
Good. Listen. How are you feeling? How's that knee?
Actually, the knee is really, 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 really good. Little pain at the incision site. I had arthroscopic surgery yesterday, but a little bit of pain at the incision site, and I can definitely tell that somebody was in there digging around. But as far as the actual pain that created the issue and made me go in and have surgery, all that is gone. So I'm actually doing pretty good. Hobbling around a little bit today. Going to try a little bit more tomorrow and just kind of go as we go. But I haven't taken any pain medication since I got a surgery yesterday. So
Nice.
Feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty happy.
So is it keeping you off the water, or are you normally slow this time of year anyway?
Yeah, we do it this time of year because I'm usually off this time of year. We'll pick up one or two charters a week, kind of see how we can do. But it's definitely a great time for me because usually late August, September is kind of my in the studio time, getting some video shot for next year, trying to get everything ready to go for show season. So this is usually the time of year we kind of slow down before we get busy again in October and November.
So when you get busy in the fall again, will it be on Saginaw Bay or will it be down on Erie?
We'll start on Saginaw Bay, probably mid-September and stay there probably through get really busy first part of October into late October. Then we go down to Ohio, usually right around Halloween. We'll stay down there till about Thanksgiving. Then we'll head back up to Saginaw Bay as the winter kind of closes in on us. So Saginaw Bay, then Lake Erie, then back to Saginaw Bay. So we're planning on a great fall fishing drive. Actually, I'm writing an article right now about 6 tips for mastering fall fishing with crankbait. So
nice.
Already in fall mode right now.
On my last trip, and it was a solo trip, just to kind of confirm what I was suspecting, is that my skinny water is pretty much done for a while. I scraped up one fish that day, Lance, but I talked to a lot of other guys who were out there, and they said, man, it was slow, unless you wanted to go way out to the deep water, which is not my forte. But that's not unusual this time of year, is it?
It is not, especially the last 2 years, this year in particular. We just don't seem to have a lot of shallow water weed growth, good quality green weeds that hold those fish, and more importantly, hold the bait in shallow. So we're seeing a lot of bait out in 24, 25, 26 feet of water, a lot of small shiners, particularly a whole bunch, tons of small perch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half perch. And those perch traditionally this time of year should be in shallow, heavy green weed beds, kind of hiding and trying to stay alive, but there's a whole bunch of them out in really, really deep, what I call mid-depth, 24, 25, 26 feet of water, fairly deep if you fish the inner bay, but over 20 feet, there's a ton of those young of the year perch, which kind of tells me, we never really did get a good shallow bite set up this year. Now, the good thing is once those perch are out there and those walleyes set up there, it doesn't matter how warm it gets out there, they're going to stay there and they're going to eat. And we should start, if people are paying attention, you can't mow your lawn quite as late now. You can't play golf quite as late now. You can't be on the water quite as late now. We're starting to get daylight's getting less and less every day, and we're starting to get these first hints of being able to turn the air conditioner off in the evening. And, just open the window and turn the fan on. So we may not think of it. The calendar may not say it because it says August, but fish are starting to think, hey, fall is getting here. I'm going to have to start thinking about how I do things, and if I can be close to where there's a ton of bait, there's no sense of me wasting a whole bunch of energy swimming around trying to find someplace different right now. So those fish are going to set up in those areas, and those areas are just going to get better as fall comes on.
So if we're seeing a bunch of small perch, is that a good sign for the perch fishery?
I don't know. Or
is it more likely just a lot of food for the walleye?
I would say yes, it's a good sign if you're a perch fisherman, but it's a bad sign that they're where they are. They're located where they are. If those perch were in 6, 7, 8 feet of water and really, really heavy weed growth where they could hide and probably get to the fall and get to the point where they're 3, 4 inches and they're fall fingerlings now, and they're probably going to survive better than they are at 1.5 inches out in open water, I would say yes. But without shallow water weed growth, those bait fish don't have any place to hide, and if they don't have any place to hide, they're going to get eaten because walleye really don't care. Walleye like a perch standard just as much as the next guy does. So it's a good sign there's that many perch. That means they've got really good natural recruitment. It's a bad sign where they are right now because they are very susceptible to not surviving.
It's the whole Great Lakes fishery. I don't care what species you're talking about. To me, reminds me of this multi-tier chessboard. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
It's all interdependent.
Yeah. It is, right? And we talk about that when fishing too. You got to think horizontally. You got to think vertically. You've got to think about all of it. Yeah, the food chain is such a number one, a very fragile item. You look at Lake Erie, you just go, man, how does it just continue to do what it does? At some point, you got to run out of bait, and it just doesn't. And you look at Saginaw Bay the last 8 years. You go, 8, 10 years. How can it just keep doing what it's doing? It's got to run out of, and it doesn't. We are in. Grandpa used to always say, "Hey, those are the good old." We are in the good old days of fishing. You and I have talked about this the last 5 years. If you can't catch a walleye in Saginaw Bay now, you might want to go buy golf clubs because it's never
which
been
I did,
easier.
by the way. I did.
It's never been easier. Now, look, are you going to catch a limit every day? Are you going to go out and catch 3 or 4 limits every day? No, but it's probably the easiest it's ever been to get on good quality fish. 16 to 22 inch fish. It's never been easier on Saginaw Bay right now than it is right now to go out and catch some fish with a little bit of thought and a little bit of effort into it. It's fairly easy right now, and as a charter captain, it's amazing because it just is fairly simple. And I tournament fish for a living for a long time, and I'll tell you what, I like easy fishing a whole lot better than I like hard fishing.
Oh yeah. Hey, before we we could. You and I could talk for 3 hours. We know this. But before we talk ourselves out of our time here, let's turn our conversation to the topic at hand this time around.
Yep.
Forward-facing sonar. You allowed me to build this as the definitive conversation about forward-facing sonar. I don't have it yet on my boat, my Angler Quest, but man, am I fascinated. Is there a use for it in a trolling application?
There absolutely is. And I really want to talk about more than the actual technique going out and fishing and doing all that stuff. I want to talk more about what forward-facing sonar is actually teaching us. I think it's much more important as a learning tool more than it is as a catching tool. First of all, I want people to understand you cannot just put forward-facing sonar on your boat, drive around, there's a fish, and catch it. That's not how this happened. Anybody that's ever spent any time doing it knows that that's not how it works. There are still the factors of depth and speed control, lure size, lure shape, lure action, lure color, types lures. There's 15 different types of lures that you can target fish with forward-facing sonar. And what we're seeing is fish will react completely different to, let's say, a jigging wrap than they will to a piece of plastic on a jig head. And you've got to have all those options. I think you have to have more options of fishing presentations with forward-facing sonar than you ever have to do without it, because you can actually see how the fish react. But what we're learning, trolling specifically, the first thing I want to talk about is how much we're learning walleyes follow lures. Oh my goodness. I've had fish, actually you watch fish move into your spread, and when you get good at it, you can kind of see that it's the same fish in your spread, and you sometimes can watch that fish follow inside your spread. You can see your lures, and you can actually watch the same fish in your spread. And Mike, I'm talking half, 3/4 of a mile. They will just get in your spread and they will just swim, and they will just be right there, and they'll go up to your lure and they'll back off your lure, and they'll come up to your lure and they'll back off, and they'll get down a little deeper and they'll come back up, and they are constantly coming in and out of your spread. So
that is crazy. That's crazy. Lance, hang tight. I want to talk a lot more about this, but Lance knows the routine by now. We got to take a break. He knows this. His name is Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com, talking about forward-facing sonar. Lots more on that coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. I had VersaSkins owner Paul Pirone in the first hour of this week's show. He had a couple of exciting announcements, including the fact that VersaSkins clothing is now available on Amazon. So you've got two options to get these hunting suits that you can snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern. It's called Change Your Skin for the season you're in. You can get them in big sizes, 4, 5, 6X. Also, they make a model for saddle hunters as well. So you can find them now in two places. The website is versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. And you have a limited supply of VersaSkins on Amazon. So do a search for VersaSkins brand on Amazon. How cool is that? While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. From that website, you can get to all of my social media outlets. So my website is basically a landing page just to get you to other places. Also, check out teachinfishin.com. Now, Teachin Fishin is filled with all kinds of great information. And Teachin Fishin is the brainchild of Sir Lance Valentine, who is with me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. So, Lance, let's go back a step from where we were when we stopped off here, when we took our break. Forward-facing sonar is the generic term, but the brand names are such things as live scope, right? That's what we're talking about?
Live scope, active target, Panoptics. Yeah,
Okay.
Every manufacturer has its own version. Each one works a little bit different. Some have narrower cones, so you see a little bit more detail. Some have wider cones, so you can actually see more fish. So each manufacturer has its own little niche in what they do. But yeah, any of those are going to work. And again, I would highly suggest. I hate to tell guys spend a whole bunch of money, but start looking, because there's really some cool stuff that came out at ICAST. Check out Lowrance. Lowrance came out with a combo unit that actually has one transducer that does live forward-facing sonar that actually is fairly inexpensive and fairly reasonable.
Really?
And again, remember, it's what we're learning, right? So we were talking about how far fish will follow, and it's amazing to watch these fish in your spread. So when you start to see that, one of the things that I started doing more than I normally do is I change my speed and I change my direction. I turn a lot. I used to just kind of be a straight line troller. It's kind of fairly easy. And again, it is Saginaw Bay. I do a lot of fishing on Lake Erie, but I'm starting to turn a lot, and you will see, and I mean, almost to the point where I turn far enough that, when you turn, the board that has the least amount of pressure on it is the outside board on the inside turn. I'm turning sometimes fast enough and hard enough that outside board on the inside turn is actually stalling. It actually has no more forward momentum to it. And what we're finding out is as those fish follow, sometimes that trigger in speed change, if that bait either speeds up and tries to get away from them, which a natural prey fish is going to do, or that bait stops and kind of falls back in their face, they have no choice but to grab it. So it's not really a feeding trigger we're trying to initialize. We're trying to get them to react to something that doesn't look the same as it just did. And I'm finding out I'm turning a lot more. That has been a big thing, and changing my speed. I'll bump the speed up. Let's say 2.2 is the best trolling speed today, and I may go 5-6 minutes without a bite. If I know I'm on the fish, I can see them on my sonar. I may pop up to 3.5 for 15, 20 seconds, then drop back down again. Just to kind of get that surge forward and that fall back of a lure. And actually watching these fish with forward-facing sonar, actually watching them in your spread and actually react either. And here's the key, right? React either positively or negatively to one of those two lets you really start to dial in your presentation. You may be doing this all day, and as you speed up, you may catch fish, and some guys don't catch it. Or you may slow down and watch the fish just kind of, maybe they're following your baits and they fall to the bottom when you slow down. Well, that instantly gives you feedback that, okay, slowing down is not the key today. I need to stay at this speed or go faster. So that it gives you some instant feedback that you can't see under the water if you don't have the ability to actually watch these fish as they're actually following your spread and how they react to the presentation changes that you make.
So you're saying these fish will follow along in our spread, and you need something to trigger it, whether it's a speed change, a direction, something to get their attention.
Yes. Yep. And then you kind of work on the next part of it, right? This is kind of a salmon thing that you may be doing the right thing to. Remember, getting a fish to bite is two things. It's the attraction, and then it's the trigger. So sometimes you're doing something good enough to attract fish into your spread, but you can't get them to trigger to bite. That may be a speed change. That may be a little change in size. That may be a color change. Maybe an action change, right? It may be one of those things. But if you can see that you're attracting fish into your spread and they're not biting, now you know you have to change things. That's a whole lot easier and a whole lot smarter way to start making decisions on lure sizes, shape, actions, colors, speed. Now you've got some feedback that says, okay, the fish are in my spread. They're there. I just haven't done enough to get them to bite. I've attracted them. I can't get them to trigger. Or you can actually see there's a bunch of fish swimming around and you troll by them and they're like, yeah, okay, so, and they don't even come into your spread. Well, now you know that your spread is totally wrong because you haven't even attracted them. You got no chance of triggering a fish if you can't attract them to your spread. So those two pieces are part of the trolling puzzle, or the casting puzzle, doesn't matter. It's part of the presentation puzzle. And if you know one of those is working, you know what you can start to change, get a positive reaction, and start to catch more fish.
So you can actually see individual fish and individual baits on this rig?
Yes. Yep. So what I do is I set up my forward-facing sonar up. I put it on scout mode, which is the wide mode, and I set it out to actually look at my trolling spread. And I can pick out, on a normal day, I can pick out 2 to 3 of my 6 or 7 lures. I can pick out 2 or 3 of those. If I really get everything dialed in really good, I got everything set at the same depth, I can kind of pick out maybe 4, sometimes 5, and I can definitely see the fish kind of slide into the spread without question.
All right, so I don't have one of these units yet. I say yet because I'm sure I will eventually. So do you? I guess I thought forward-facing sonar. I'm thinking that the transducer's on the bow of the boat. Not necessarily, though, right?
No. So traditionally, and I would tell you for kind of the things that we do, that transducer needs to be on a pole. TrackStack makes a really nice pole that sits in your TrackStack track. Sorry, they're putting in a roof on my house. It sits in the TrackStack track, and you can actually adjust the pole where it's pointing, so you can get a really, really good picture. And then a company called Rytek Marine, R-Y-T-E-K, one of our good buddies, Ryan Bombett, makes a really cool mount that makes it really simple to adjust the angle of that transducer very, very fast, from down looking to side looking to forward looking. And those little tools help you really, really, really dial in where you want to be able to see when you're outside, when you're looking out, when you're trying to troll. So you can constantly move that.
I see. Okay, now I get it. So I've seen these guys with these poles on the back corner of the boat sticking down. Now I know what that is.
There you go.
Prices
so
are.
Lowrance came out with a new unit called Eagle Eye. They make a 9-inch unit with the Eagle Eye transducer, which is forward facing. I'm looking at it right now, a 9-inch unit with that ability, with some good mapping inside, $1,000.
Oh, that's come way down.
Way down. Where traditionally, I run the Active Target 2, and my transducer and my box to get that view into my unit, not a unit, just that box, is about $1,800. Yeah. So they have combined all this with one transducer into a pretty good sized 9-inch unit, compact, comportable. You can rig yourself a nice little portable package, get yourself a pole, and you can take that from boat to boat. You can take it out bluegill fishing on your buddy's boat if you want. You don't have to have it permanently attached to your boat. So they're really starting to, again, $1,000 is expensive. So I don't want anybody to say, but a whole lot cheaper than it used to be, and a whole lot more user-friendly than it used to be.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my next topic, my next point. Look, at $1,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
yes, it is.
But if that is your passion, and this is what you do on your time off and your weekends, and this is what you think about, and this is what you plan for, and you got a boat that's worth several times that, it's just a continuing investment in your recreational time.
Yes, and this unit also gives you regular 2D, gives you side scan and down scan, I'm sorry, down scan image. Yeah, side scan and down scan with the new fish reveal, which actually one of the things that Doug Ward is using when he uses that down scan and able to see the fish in the weeds. That's called fish reveal. So this unit comes with all of that, including forward-facing sonar.
Wow. And it's going to do nothing but continue to become less expensive as the years go on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long, Lance? I mean, you are my my tech guy when it comes to fishing. How long did it take you to figure out how to dial this in and to use it?
I'm still learning. I don't use it as much as I should. I'll run that caveat. I don't use it as much as I should. But if things start to get weird, I'm like, okay, we should be catching a whole lot more fish than that. It's kind of like my fish hawk, right? I don't fish with my fish hawk down in the water all the time. But if I see something, go, okay, this just isn't right. Especially when I'm trolling, I'll put it on and kind of go, okay, what the heck is happening here? I am starting to spend some more time. Holloway Reservoir is 15 minutes from my house. I'm starting to spend more time over there by myself, trying to learn it better for casting and picking out fish and casting and seeing structure. So I'm getting better at it. But again, my life is charter fishing. So I don't have a lot of time to do this, but I'm definitely getting better. And every time you're out, I'm getting a little bit better with it. The advantage I have is I have a bunch of buddies that use it. Takes you an hour on the boat with one of them, and we're dialed in. But you can get dialed in fairly quickly with it once you understand what it's trying to show you.
Yeah. Lance, I'd love to offer you the coveted third just to shoot the breeze, but I know these guys are putting the roof on over your head. Is that bothering you, or can you continue on?
Doesn't bother. If it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me.
Well, it does bother me, but I'm willing to go ahead for another segment.
Let's do it on because I want to talk about something else that actually has become abundantly clear with forward-facing sonar when we're trolling. I think something really, really key that guys need to know about.
Perfect. Let's do that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. Continue our conversation with Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com, as they put a new roof on his house, so please forgive the background noise. But Lance is on the mend. He's feeling better. He is a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, as always. I have not been on a boat with forward-facing sonar yet. But I've spent a lot of time talking about it with people because I am fascinated by it. And now that Lance says, look, you can actually look at your spread and see how fish react as they come into your baits, it's just a matter of time, I'm telling you. This year it was new golf clubs. Next year it's probably going to be forward-facing sonar. We'll take a break. When we come back, more with Lance Valentine. Then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Muskegon on WKBZ. That's 1090 AM. You can hear us in the UP and WNBY in Newberry, 1450 AM. Down in Taos, WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And then in Saginaw, WSGW, News Radio 790 AM and 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now, here with Jonathan Dent, doing a great job as always. And you know what, John? They probably don't even realize that we slid in 2 pre-recorded segments in this week's show. I bet you they couldn't even tell, thanks to the great work of Jonathan Dent. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. I had the Reader crew over at the house this last week. These ornamental trees at the corner of the house they're just growing like crazy. Reader guys came out, 3 of them. Different ladders. They each got a tree. Boom, boom, boom. They're all trimmed up and beautiful and ready to go. And you know what? I could have done that job. But why? Why not let those guys do it? Because then I can work on something else. Reader is your one-stop shop for all your lawn and landscaping needs. They do a great job. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. And as we change seasons now and transition into this fall season, the folks from Reader can help you get ready for the upcoming fall as well. That's readerlandscaping.com. Talking now with Lance Valentine, Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com. Lance, you said there's something else you want to talk about. What is that?
There is. I want to make sure people understand one of the things we're learning from forward-facing sonar is that our transducer on the back of the boat might be lying to us.
No.
Meaning
tell me it ain't true.
I'm telling you, buddy. meaning that we're driving along, we get out to a place, we're kind of moving along, 8, 10, 12, 15 miles an hour trying to find fish. Maybe we're even trolling. We set down, oh, man, look at that. There's a whole bunch of walleyes down there at, 20, 21 feet. So we start putting our baits down 15, 16, 18 feet to catch those fish. Man, why are these fish not biting? Well, there's a pretty good opportunity. And what we're learning with forward-facing sonar is we put it in scout mode and look ahead of us, is those fish are really only 8, 10, 12, 15 feet deep. And when we go over them with the boat, they drop down. So our lures are actually way below the fish that we're targeting. We always used to say in big water, always keep a bait in the top, third of the water column or top quarter of the water column for a straggler. We're finding out that those aren't stragglers a lot of times. They're actually where the fish are located. Those high baits catch them because that's where the majority of the fish are located. And as we drive over a pot of fish, by the time we see them on 2D, we have actually forced them down a little deeper. They scatter from the boat a little bit, and putting our baits down to target those fish that are down that we see on our 2D on the transducer on the back of our boat might be fish that are actually running from the boat, and the biters are actually a lot higher.
Even on heavily fished waters like Lake Erie or Saginaw Bay, or where they see a lot of boat traffic, we're still spooking them?
Even on heavily fished waters like Saginaw Bay. Yeah.
Well, I go back. When I hear you say something like this, I go back to what my dad used to say. My dad, he's no longer with us, but man, that guy knew how to fish. He knew how to troll. He inherently knew these types of things, Lance. He didn't have all this technology to tell him this, but he knew these things. He also said that he always thought that fish could sense the signal from our sonar units as well. Do you believe that? Can they feel that?
I absolutely they can, because basically what's happening is you're pushing a sound wave through the water, and as that sound wave goes through, it actually compresses the water and actually pushes the water kind of out of the way, if you will. So that there definitely is a pulse issue. And again, look, we fish some of the best walleye fisheries in the world, and we can get away with some of this stuff. But as guys go to, let's say somebody's got a cabin up on Burt Lake or Mullet Lake, or maybe they're fishing some clear water up in Tawas or Escoda. Maybe they fish up at the Sioux where it's a little bit cleaner. These things become a much bigger deal when you get out of areas where there's a gazillion walleye. And it's really cool to see it on bodies of water like Erie and Saginaw Bay, because you have a lot of targets. You have a lot of information that says this is really happening. Can you imagine if those pods of fish you're fishing are only 20 fish big as opposed to 200 like they are in Saginaw Bay? How important is really understanding what those fish are actually doing to catch your 6, 8, 10 fish every day?
Well, and you talk about fish in other waters. I had a conversation with Eric Carlson on this most recent edition of the Offshore Tackle podcast. And we talked about that, fishing crystal clear northern Lake Huron water and what that's like. So, I hear what you're saying. It's interesting.
Yep, and he's a big forward-facing sonar guy, too. I'm sure you got into that conversation.
We did. I can't interview anybody these days without talking about forward-facing sonar.
It's just one of those tools. My guys are up here putting a roof on, and nobody's got a hammer. They're all using an air nailer, right? I mean, tools evolve, and and again, I'm gonna leave you with this: the less time you have to fish, the more important these tools become. Everybody looks at, well, I only go fishing 5 times a year, so I don't need all this crap. That's totally wrong, because if you only get to fish 5 times a year, you don't have time to figure out all the stuff that I can figure out being on the water 200 days a year. You need to be on fish right away. Those 5 Saturdays that you have 5 hours to fish, you have to maximize your time. That's what these tools do. They put you in the right place, show you what's happening, and let you get your lures to the right depth a whole lot quicker and a whole lot more accurately than someone like me who can kind of take a day to figure it out. If you only fish a little bit, you don't have the time. The less you fish, the more you have to rely on technology to help you be in the right spot.
Amen, brother. Words of wisdom from Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com. Always a pleasure, Lance. I hope that knee heals up, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the time.
We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We'll go from one good guy to another, Lance Valentine to Dixie Dave Minar. And I think Dave has a salmon recipe coming up for us this week right here on Outdoor Magazine, coming up after the break. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. And if you have been with us before, you know what's coming up next, right? We wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Going way back to the days of the television show, Dave was just proven to be so popular among viewers and listeners that I just can't do a show without him. And I don't think at this point, Dave, you would let me do one without you, would you?
Well, it's been a pleasure. I'll say that for sure.
Hey, listen, you're supposed to be in retirement, but when I talk to you now, you got all these events coming up.
Oh, I got a couple of caterings coming up. Actually, 3 of them. I got a birthday party, quite a large one for 100 people. I got the Friends of Shiawassee coming up, and I got the Delta College fundraiser coming up. So, no, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to keep on plugging away at it.
Good for you. Good for you. And speaking of plugging away, how about a recipe for us this week?
Well, we've got, seeing how it's salmon season, and we're going to do a salmon with dill. And when we had this special at the restaurant when we were open, it sold like crazy. People just love this. So you need this is for 4 portions. And so you need 4 8-ounce boneless, skinless filet per person, ounce or so of gin. And brandy could be optional, but you want the gin flavor. Excuse me. A couple of beaten up eggs, juice of a lemon, horseradish to taste, half a teaspoon of dill weed, or to your flavor, a little or more. It's up to you guys who are going to make this. And then garlic, cloves, 2, 3, 4, whatever you like as far as your garlic flavor, chopped fine. Half a bunch of green onions. You're going to slice them real thin. 1 medium onion sliced very thin. Same thing with the green pepper, sliced thin. You need a cucumber, which is optional, but we always used to use that in the restaurant. People loved it. Skinned, cut it in half, de-seed it with a spoon, and then you shred it on your either in a food processor or by hand. A couple ounces of white wine, a cup of chicken gravy, or half a jar, or maybe a little bit more of jarred gravy, olive oil to saute, and some flour, and a tablespoon, 2, 3, 4, whatever you like, of sour cream. So you're going to dredge the fish and fillets in flour and dip it in beaten up eggs. And in a very hot pan with a small amount of oil, brown them on both sides, starting with the rib side down. So when you turn it over, the rib side will be facing the diner. You can put this in on a warm plate or in a casserole in the oven at 350 degrees while you're getting the rest of this done. And that's going to finish cooking the fish. So you're going to add the onion, the pepper, the garlic, and saute that slowly. You don't want to burn it. You just want to make it nice and translucent. And then you're going to take the pan away from the stove and then flambe it with the gin and the brandy away from the stove. You don't want to do this underneath where your vent is. Then you're going to add the lemon, the horseradish, the green onion, the dill, the gravy, the white wine, everything, and simmer it for around 5 minutes to kind of reduce that down. And so while the fish is in a casserole in the oven, either that or if you don't want to turn your oven on at this nice hot weather we've been having, you want to put the fish back in the mixture, cover it for 3 to 4 minutes, just until the fish is done. Don't forget, salmon is going to continue to cook after a while. You want to just get this done. You don't want to overdo it because it's going to dry up. So you're going to remove the fish to your serving plates, and then you're going to blend in the cucumber and the sour cream, and then stir that nice, gently, heat it up, and then stir it over the fish, either in the casserole and cook it a couple of minutes more, or if it's already done, then just serve it with fluffy rice or buttered noodles. And this is on page 41 of the cookbook.
And I will post this recipe on the Facebook page. You said salmon will continue to cook. Every fish will continue to cook, though, won't they, Dave?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When you heat it up like that, it continues in. Walleye would be a thinner fish by a lot. And so that's going to continue cooking right all the way through pretty much. For salmon, it's going to take a little while, but it'll finish cooking if you heat it up.
I can't hear you talk about salmon without thinking about the feasts in Manistee at Instalaunch.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, I've said this before, it was like Jesus feeding the masses. Like, people smelled this stuff and they came in from everywhere, and you just kept cooking it, and people kept eating it.
I know. They kept bringing me fish. We probably did better a couple of 100 pounds easily. And that big barbecue that I used to have, I had it set up where I had big regulators on it. That thing sounded like a jet plane when it was cooking. Just like.
Yeah, you made a lot of people happy with that thing, Dave. Me
That
included.
We've had some fun times, Michael. I'll tell you what.
Well, we absolutely have. And unfortunately, you can't join us for the next Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack, but we'll be doing more in the future, and hopefully you can join us for those, Dave.
Okay, yeah, depends on what I got cooking. I have a party just 2 days after that, so I'll be busting my hump getting ready for them parties.
What you've got cooking, literally. Wild Game Chef Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you, because if you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this, and there's nothing else I want to be doing at this point in my life. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Also, I do quite a bit of stuff on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter now called X. Just do a search for Mike Avery Outdoors or go to the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com.